Hello, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode on 1950's Farm. So, as you can see, we've got the sprayer out today. Made a bit of a boo-boo yesterday on the game. Was meant to spray the corn before it got this high, and we're doing the grass and one or two other little jobs that I had to do on the farm. I completely forgot, and unfortunately it didn't get done. So we're having to do it now with the corn just a little bit higher than really what I would have wanted. But not to worry, I guess. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame because, as I say, I didn't want the corn this high. But anyway, we'll get this done. We've just got this field to do, and then my field to do, and then we are going to get on with some contract work that we've got coming up. So there probably is going to be just as kind of sort of pre-warn you and hopefully not put no one off. There's going to be a few episodes now of combining coming up because obviously that is where Harry, way back in 1950 or 1952 as it is now, but in the sort of early to mid part of 1950s, started to earn his money and started to earn his reputation as well. As much as earning money is great, you don't earn the sums of money that are later involved in his farm without building a reputation, without being reliable, without having and doing all of that sort of good stuff. And so we need to get that on the game started as well because, as I say, early my bloody pedals are playing up again today. Yeah, so as I say, from the sort of late 60s, 70s, that's when things move. So we need to get going on that. We're not going to do many fields, and we're not going to do big fields, and because this map has some pretty humongous fields, and we're not travelling too far either. Sort of all the contracting work that we do will be around the area that we live in, or that Harry lives in, because I mean he says that it wasn't really until the 60s where they started to travel a little bit, and they started to go a little bit further afield. But certainly for now, we're gonna just stay around this area. But yeah, so we've got this to do today. We've got some spraying of soybeans at Harry's farm to do, and then, as I say, we'll get the combine started. I doubt whether we'll get it finished in this episode, but we will get it started, and then we'll go from there. I always overlap a little bit in the corners just because you can never be quite sure whether you turned it on or not in time, and the one thing you don't want is patches missed, because if you did do it in time, the worst you're going to do is scorch the crop a little bit. Depending on what chemical you're using, the crop's going to recover. However, if you miss bits and you're spraying for something specific, then you're maybe not gonna recover that yield loss over the course of the growing year. So that's why I'm having trouble seeing again. That's why I always just overlap a little bit into the corners just to make sure that you did get it. But yeah, as I say, even in real life, I mean, I didn't really do a lot of spraying in real life. I think one year I did quite a bit, because one of the lads that usually did it, I think he had a year where he was sort of not very well, and it was hoped, and eventually it turned out, that he would come back and want his job back, and he did. You know, the farm were always very keen to look after, you know, us lads and lasses, because there was, as I said before, there was a couple of girls on the farm as well that worked on the tractors and that. But yeah, you know, if you were a good worker, they looked after you. And so I sort of had a year really where I filled in as and when, you know, if I didn't have, you know, sort of much in the way of ploughing or, you know, veg work to do, veg land to do, then, you know, I'd be spraying. It was all right, to be fair. Not a particularly favourite job of mine, but mainly because of the smell. You know, when using certain chemicals, the smell is quite potent, and I never forget one day I had a blocked hose, or it turned out to be a block hose, but we didn't know that at the time. And you had to be certified to work on the sprayers, so there was only really, I think there was two of our mechanics on the farm that was certified to work on the sprayer, so that when the work was complete, the farm and everybody else official was kind of satisfied that the work had been met to the required standard to keep everyone safe, and that chemical wasn't going to be leaking everywhere and what have you. Anyway, so I've got, as I say, I've got some nozzles that are not spraying, and then sometimes they would spray and then they would not spray again. So I noticed it towards the end of the field, got back to the farm because I needed to fill up anyway. We had Bowser tanks that used to come out on tractors, and very occasionally our lorries would bring them out as well, but mainly it was our fast track that would or two fast tracks we had, but that would cart the spray Bowsers around for us. But this particular day I was working quite close to the farm, so I was just going sort of back and forth from the farm and using the Bowsers in the yard, because where I was working as well was on one of the housing estates, and there was just nowhere to park it. So, you know, we just ran back to the farm. I think it was about like 3 miles or something like that. And yeah, so I got back to the farm, and as it was Terry, who was one of the mechanics that was qualified to work on the sprayer, was in the yard, and I said to him, you know, I said, look, one of my nozzles is, I think it was one or maybe two of my nozzles were not spraying. I said, and then they just kick in and then they stop again, and I said, like, they were a bit stop start. And this tractor has got awful steering. So he came along and over to the sprayer, and he had a look, and he said to me, he said, I think it's a block pipe. He said, you know, there's obviously some gunge or whatever, or calcium, or, you know, whatever got up into the pipe and it's blocked, and that's why it's not doing it. So he said, switch your pump on. He took the pipe off first, cleaned it all out, and then jetted it out with water, and then put the pipe back on, and then said, right, now turn your pump on. And in the sprayer we put a few hundred litres of water, and it sort of sprayed fairly consistently, and we were fairly satisfied that you know, that the issue had been sort of resolved. So I goes back off to the field, and I does my spraying. Well, halfway through the field, the nozzle, I think it was one or two nozzles or three, you know, but nozzles on the end of the sprayer again were not spraying. So I rings him up and I says, like, Terry, it's stopped spraying again. I'm in the middle of the field. So he says, okay, get to the headland. Don't spray anything, because you're going to want to go back over that breed if you're missing. but just get to the headland where I can get to you. So does that, gets to the headland, and waits for him to come, and he arrives, and I don't know, I just guess that neither of us really sort of just thought, it was odd because he comes along and takes the pipe off, takes the nozzles off, and I mean, I'm not fully up on how sprayers work. I realise there's a diaphragm, there's obviously a pump, and what have you, and I'm not too sure still to this day what happened. And I think he did try and explain, and he also said it wasn't the first time it had happened to him. But we got the the pipe off, and we was putting the pipe back on. He was, and I was stood not too far from him, but not next to him either. But I was sort of within the vicinity, so that if he needed, some tools or whatever, I could fetch them. And he put the pipe on one end, and he's holding the pipe up to, like, sort of pointing at his face, while he's got it trapped between the boom and his, like, sort of stomach and chest. He's got the pipe, but it's facing upwards. And from, like I say, I'm not really sure how it happened, because I'm not into the mechanics of how sort of sprayers work, apart from there's a diaphragm and a pump and lots of pipes, and the spray just come out and was just like literally spraying him in the face. And you're trying to rush to help him, because he's being absolutely covered in the spray that we were putting on the field, and I knew the only thing I could do was to get in the cab and shut everything down. What, in that moment of kind of panic, I did forget was that there was a pump shut off on the outside of the sprayer. As I say, it wasn't a thing that, it wasn't a job that I normally did. I was familiar enough of the sprayer to be able to use it and to be able to do a good job, but it just, like, and he was absolutely covered, and he was like kind of sort of spitting it, and it was truly horrendous. Like, it honestly, proper. I mean, I feared, and of course, we instantly told the fire manager what happened, and he was rushed off to hospital, and sort of seen, and thankfully they sort of concluded that you know nothing too serious. I think they kept him in overnight just to make sure that he sort of didn't have chemical poisoning, but it didn't even burn his skin or do anything like that. I can't. I mean, it was many years ago now. I can't remember what we were putting on the crop, or what we were what I was spraying on at the time. But yeah, I just always sticks whenever I'm spraying in FS. I always think of that day on that afternoon. But thankfully, all is well. He's still alive. He still works on the farm, as far as I know, and everything sort of turned out well in the end. He suffered no ill effects whatsoever. But I mean, afterwards, when and I apologised, and he said, "Well, you've got nothing to be sorry about." He said it was me that did it. It was my fault. And he said, and it's not the first time it's happened to me anyway. He said, you wouldn't believe how many times you get covered in spray because you forget to turn the pump off, or you forget to, do whatever. And he said it's amazing. He said I probably haven't been done that badly before, where it just literally, he said, was blasting up my face. It was going up my nose, it was going in my ears, in my mouth, because I was sort of, had my mouth open because I was trying to breathe, because I was being blasted up the nose with water and chemical and everything else. And he said I had my mouth open, which was a mistake on my part, and it was awful. like I say, it was a for me, it was a absolutely, because I've got this thing. This is a natural fear of being poisoned, and like from sort of chemicals to food to anything. Like I honestly, like I just have this innate fear of being poisoned and what have you, and seeing him being sort of covered from head to toe in the spray that we were spraying on the crops. I think I was spraying wheat at the time, so it was probably either some sort of fungus or maybe ear cleaner or something along those lines, I would guess, because I remember I was spraying wheat, and I remember the wheat was reasonably tall. The one thing I can't remember, I think there was ears on the corn, so whether I was like spraying an ear cleaner on the wheat or what, I don't know, but yeah, honestly, I worried, like the old, worried myself to death for about a week that something was going to happen to him, and then the police was going to be called, and I was going to be called in, and I was going to lose my job, and even worse for him. And I felt like because I knew his wife, I knew his kids, like I mean, the farm was sort of, or although we all came from sort of very different places, and what have you, and 99% of the farm workers there are usually headhunted, and it's not a job that's sort of uh, advertised in the paper. Normally, it involves, like the farm manager or the farm owners or whatever, and they sort of go out into the air, into the sort of wide areas where we farm, and and they literally just stop tractor drivers and say, look, we've been looking at your work, we've been, whatever, blah blah blah, would you like to come and work for us? This is what we offer. This is how much we pay. This is what you get. This is, what we expect. This is, and people just sort of say yes or no to them. And that's how I got my job. I mean, I was ploughing on the family farm that I worked on. As I say, I was spraying, I was ploughing, sorry, on that farm, and the farm manager, sort of came over and he was watching me on the headlands, and as I say, he came when I got back to the other end of the field. He, sort of came over. Do you mind if I have a couple of rounds with you? No. And and then that's how I sort of got my job. So it meant that, as I say, we all came from very different backgrounds, and we all came from very different places. I mean, one of the lads that I worked with, he had been headhunted while the farm manager was on holiday in Yorkshire, and near Whitby, and he noticed, the lad working in the field, and said, you know, would you like to come and work for us? This is, and he relocated from Yorkshire. I mean, the farm had houses and bungalows and different things. We all had, we all lived virtually on the farm or within, 5 minutes of the farm. It was another thing they did like, was to keep us all pretty close, so that we were available to go at any time of the day. And not only that as well, but if then we worked really, really late, we were probably really tired. The good thing was we didn't have that far to drive home. We would literally, and I mean, sometimes, I mean, not for myself, because my sort of girlfriend at the time didn't drive, but for the other lads, the wives would just, sometimes they'd have one car, and she would come out and pick them up, or but as I say, I sort of didn't live too far from the farm, so it wasn't really a great deal a great problem for me. You had to work there for at least 6 months before you got offered one of the houses, and they only ever took on when either someone left, retired, or whatever. Very rare people left unless they were moving away or like something else, going to have a complete change of life. It was very rare that any of us ever left. I mean, I left because of ill health in the end, and you know I just there was nothing really I could do on the farm. We tried for a long time to try and find um, sort of roles that I could do, but at the same heart, in the end, has now got to the stage where, as I say, I sort of struggle walking to the bathroom to go to the loo, and get out of breath and tired very quickly. Um, so it's just a case of leaving, really. But I don't know if you can see, but directly ahead of us there, I've put the cow pen in, and I've got the cows, and I've set up the feed and the water because that cow pen has a water trough. And I've set all that up and got that going. So that's all sort of busy now and looking good. And we've got some bales in the field. Next job after this job is to, as I say, we are going to be doing some contract combining, but the next job that we've got to do on the farm is we need to mow and bale, ted and then bale the half of the field over directly in front of me now. So the field directly in front, we've got to mow and then, as I say, ted and then bale that. That will give us a few more bales, but then I can get it ploughed over and get it ready for autumn cropping. I'm not too late to crop it now if I really want to, but I'm not sure about that. There we go. And then we'll go this end and then work our way back. It's a nice little sprayer, this actually. It's not too far away from the real one that they had. It's, for me, for something that a mod that's advertised as an old sprayer, it's a little bit modern for me, but it's still a nice sprayer and it does a decent job. So mustn't grumble. But yeah, so as I say, that was me spraying story. As I say, one or two people have requested that I do sort of every now and again just recount things that happened in real life or whatever, and say whenever I spray on the game, that's what it reminds me of. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over now to some time lapse because it's been 24 minutes that I've been yakking on for. So I'm going to go over to a little bit of time lapse, and then we'll meet at the end again, and we'll summarise what we've done and try and give a plan of action for next time, as I say, which I think is going to be contract combining or harvesting. So yeah, I'll see you in a little while. Bye for now. And I'm back. So as you can see, we've done this baling, and we've done the fertilising, but with the sprayer. So we've got all that done. But as I say, I wanted to get this bit done, and then next bit to do is the bit the other side. But I wanted to sort of divide it up and make it a little bit sort of quicker in a way. I didn't want to do all of it in one go because, as I say, we've done quite a bit of baling again just recently. So as I say, I thought I would just break it up a little bit. I'm still not decided whether to do this side that I'm doing now as the arable field, or whether to do the other side as the arable field and have this bit just as a bit of grass for the cows, because to be fair, between this field and that field we've produced quite a lot of bales, and as I say, they're only calves, so in theory they're not going to be eating that much for for a good sort of 12 to 18 months. So we might be able to get ourselves ahead on the bales. There is another bit of land that I want to buy, which is just the other side of those trees, sorry, and I'd like to buy that, and that's got a grass field to it as well. So yet again, obviously that offers us more opportunity for bales, but it does also have another arable field with it as well. But the only problem is it is very expensive, the land on this map, and it's going to be a few years before we're able to. Well, I say a few years, probably a good couple of 3 years, I would say. Although, having said that, with the contract starting to come in now, and other bits and pieces that we're sort of starting to do now, maybe that money will be able to come in a little bit quicker than otherwise it would. But as I say, we'll wait and see on that one. But it's a bit of land that I would actually really like to buy, because as I say, it does have an arable field and a grass field. So at the moment it's sort of ticking boxes for us, because we need grass for the cows, and we need arable to build up our farm. So things at the moment going quite well, and as I say, we've some of the wheat now, as you can see to the top left, some of the wheat on the map is now ready to be harvested, and that's afforded us a few contracts that we can now sort of set out and do with our little combine. The little combine is not staying around too long. Once Harry realised that combining was going to become quite a sort of big thing for him and obviously his farm, the combine quickly went, and when the dairy got self-propelled combines, which is 1953 when they got their first 3 self-propelled combines. The combines they got, I can't find. It's the John Deere 55's series combines that they got, but I can't find them. I can find one with the cab, but I can't find one without. And they had the one without the cab. Cab still in the sort of 50s wasn't overly popular, so, or not popular but common. Combines were still mainly cabless. I've read today that it's attributed that the John Deere 55, which was in the 50s the best-selling combine, is what many regard in agricultural machinery as the forerunner to why the modern day combines are the way they are. They say that, from what I was reading, and this wasn't from John Deere, funnily enough, this actually was from another big agricultural company that make combines, that makes the second best selling combine in the world, behind the John Deere X9, which is currently the best selling combine in the world, and it's also credited with the largest combine in the world title as well. But the second biggest class, I can say. Yeah, I'm under no contracts by anyone to not mention rival names. Class have said that the 55 John Deere back in the 1950s was the forefront of their combines even still today. That a lot of what that 55 series combine had, Class, John Deere, New Holland, follow, pretty much the same principles. All that's happened is that technology has moved on, and what was able to move or what was able to produce a very nice sample of wheat can now produce 10 times that sample of wheat in a much less time. And but Class, as I say, and a couple of others, New Holland being another firm, attribute the John Deere 55 to the leader of, or the beginning of, the modern day combines that we see today, which I thought was quite interesting. And the more I read about sort of the 1950s, going into the 1960s, the more I begin to kind of see that the 1950s were really where modern today agriculture began, because, as I say, Class, speaking very highly of the John Deere 55 combine that they bought and basically took to pieces, and it was 2 years later that Class then released their first version of the Matador combine, which was heavily based on the John Deere combine. So it's quite interesting. As I say, balers were changing rapidly. Not only round balers but also the square balers, and different things like that. So yeah, as we sort of go through the next few years, hopefully I'm going to be talking quite a bit about the machinery, about why it was done. The thing I read today, and Harry certainly backs this up as well, because the little combine that we've got in there, although it isn't actually a mod of it, I got it because it's very, very close to what he had. This is, as I say, is what I've chosen to be the Alice Chalmers A series combine. Now, the 55 series John Deere combine came out probably the very first 55 combine from John Deere was released the same time as their 30 series combine, which was a trailed combine. But their 55 series combine, the very first one that came out, was in 1947, and it wasn't very successful. And John Deere withdrew that from the market very quickly, and only 2 or 3 were sold, and they were quickly, I don't know about taken back, but they were quickly withdrawn as well. But it's widely accepted in farming, and from the farmers that I've spoken to, not only in America, over the last few days, which has been really great, and I'm really grateful for the information that they've been giving me, but also farmers in this country as well, in the UK. And they say that the Alice Chalmers A series and the AC series was the best combine in terms of the best sample of grain, that it was very simply designed, and it was able to give a near perfect sample of grain over any combine that was currently out at the time. And as I say, John Deere released their self-propelled 55 series combine. It wasn't a success, but in 1950, I'm sure it was 1952, they released their 55 sort of Mark II, if you like, and that combine would go on to be in the 50s and the 60s, or the early 60s, the best-selling combine, and the most widely used combine in the USA, and second in the UK only to the Massey Ferguson, or Massey Harris as it was at the time, and the Class Matador, which was also to come out, as I say, in the late 50s, a couple of years, or yeah, late 50s, we'll say, a couple of years after the John Deere 55. But anyway, I've gone on for way too much in this video. As I say, as and when I can, I like to sort of update, history, and give you the reasonings and what was going on in the world in in the 1950s. As I say, currently 1952. On the sort of government grant fund, not much was happening really. The farms that were sort of destined to make it were producing the food that Harry S. Truman had hoped would be produced. And as I say, it isn't long before we get into the 60s, and the market is absolutely flooded with everything from food to steel to coal, everything. And prices would dramatically drop. And when those prices dropped, a lot of the farms that in the 50s looked like they were going to go on and be thriving, successful farms fell. And that was when Harry and the dairy pounced, and they started to produce, to buy land, and they started to take over their corner of Ohio. Yeah, so as I say, it's an interesting time that's coming up, and one I hope that you're going to enjoy not only watching but hearing about as well. But I need to end this episode here because, as I say, I don't want to go on too long. It's been quite a long episode anyway, because we've done quite a bit of work today. As I say, we've sprayed that field and that field over there. We've cut, tedded and rowed and then baled this field here. As I say, it's been quite a long video. So all that's left for me to say is, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really does help the channel, and it helps to bring me to new audience, and increase the views and the subscribers and everything like that. So please don't forget if you haven't already, because it really does help. And finally, I'd like to thank you all ever so much for joining me on this episode. I've really enjoyed having your company, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Bye for now.